So let's get into the actual first Bears topic. And the first thing we want to discuss is who is snagging that second outside wide receiver position. It's something that we talked about extensively on the podcast, how important it's going to be to have someone to balance out Allen Robinson, someone to replace Taylor Gabriel's speed. And it looks like we have some contenders coming in. Riley Ridley and Darnell Mooney seem, in my opinion, to be the top two options. But Javon Wims is supposedly fighting very heavily for that position as well. So it looks like Javon Wims will actually make this roster. I know we talked about the possibility of him being cut if we didn't have any issues. But something that I've been initially surprised about is just how little of news we've gotten on Ted Ginn Jr. We talked about him potentially being a cut candidate, a surprise cut candidate going into the season. We compared him to the Victor Cruz situation. Wow, another New York Giant coming back up in this podcast.
Right.
But ultimately, as far as the second outside wide receiver goes, it's going to be really tough to figure out who exactly is grabbing that position. No one is necessarily sticking out dominantly, but if I have to cast my bet, I'm going to say it's going to be Mooney, kind of coming from behind from all the other wide receivers just because of the speed he brings to the room. He's going to help balance out Allen Robinson a lot, provide some good deep threat, and apparently he's been sticking out pretty well in camp.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping you were going to say Ridley because I wanted to be able to go against you, but I really think it's Mooney, and I think it's for the fact of what you brought up is the balance between him and Allen Robinson. I think Ridley is good. He's got a lot of great characteristics, and he's a lot like Allen Robinson, which is a good thing. But in the case of them lining up, on opposite sides of the field or, next to each other, if it's like a twins package or something like that, they're just too much of the same. And I would like to see, someone like Mooney that has a bit different of characteristics, the ability to stretch that field out more. And, honestly, I know that it's not something that we're going to expect, and I don't think it's something that Nagy will end up doing, but I really would be fine with Miller taking a few snaps on the outside, too. Mm-hmm. I know he's great out of the slot, but something that me and you talked about a long time ago is, trying to get, Miller some snaps and try to be that wide receiver, too, because especially they have Ted Ginn that can also work out of that slot if he does end up making the team, which, probably looks like, but like you said, odd that we have not heard very much about him. That's for sure.
And I think that we could actually see him cut. We talked about that. It might be a little bit of a surprise thing for us, but ultimately, I think we might have kind of seen it coming. Someone who's kind of seen a decline, has had some bad drops throughout his career. They're pretty notable. But ultimately, I think that we are going to see mostly Mooney in that spot, but I also see a timeshare kind of there with Ridley as well. I think Ridley offers us a little bit more when you get into the red zone. From what I've seen, or from what I've heard, at least from, the people who are at training camp, Bears training camp, that is, they're saying that Mooney, he kind of looks like Taylor Gabriel, but he's just a much better catcher of the ball, and he's much better with his body motions and just being able to control his body, being able to go up there and get a catch, which is something that Taylor Gabriel wasn't all that good at when he came here to Chicago. Obviously, really short stature. Mooney's a little bit bigger than him in that regard. But having a younger, better version of Taylor Gabriel could really help this team out a lot. And, I was very skeptical of Mooney going into training camp. I said that I don't know if he's going to be that good. I would have liked to see the pick go elsewhere. I know a lot of people were hyping him up going into training camp, but I just didn't see it because, hey, a lot of these young, undersized, fast guys come into the league and they get a ton of hype with them and then don't really end up performing. So, I hope he proves me wrong. I hope that we see him starting this season. That'd be huge for the Bears if we can have some real production there. And I think Ridley is going to see a lot more snaps in the red zone than Mooney will. Ridley, obviously a bigger guy, really good route runner. Doesn't quite have the speed that his brother has, but ultimately still a really good player and really pretty good at contested catches. Javon Wims, on the other hand, I think is going to see maybe some snaps there, but probably going to be the backup.
Yeah, and even if it's working Javon Wims, or, Ridley or Mooney, I really just want to see, good use, good, balance of wide receiver play. I mean, we talk about the balancing the run with the pass just in general and having a balanced offense, but one thing we don't really get much time to talk about is kind of balancing those wide receivers, Got into it a little bit on what I just said last time, but you want to have, receivers that complement each other well, that, keep defenses guessing. And, I think that utilizing rotating wide receivers, I want to hear, on the broadcast when the Bears are playing, whether it be Foles or Trubisky, hey, this is the seventh different receiver he's targeted today, eighth different receiver that he's targeted today. I want to hear things like that, whether it's using variety of running backs in the passing game, using Cole Kmet and Jimmy Graham, and whoever the other tight end, who's going to be pretty capable on the roster, who ends up making it is, and then the bevy of receivers. I want to see them all getting action in the passing game.
Yeah, that's a great point. We definitely need to find out a way how to, kind of spread out this offense a little bit better, get the ball distributed better. Obviously, I think Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet are going to offer us great options there into helping us do that, help us spread the field more, open up maybe David Montgomery, Tariq Cohen in the passing game, take away some pressure from Allen Robinson. But ultimately, at that second wide receiver position, that is going to be incredibly important to helping this team become whole, allowing us to spread out the field, and really allowing us to just be the best type of offense we can be. When one side of the field is lacking, it affects the other side. So I think that initially, Reece, we both kind of talked about how, we weren't so sure how this wide receiver position is going to go, and we didn't know if we are going to need to add another piece to this. But it looks like right now that actually might not be the case, and we might actually have some decent wide receiver play out of that position.
Yeah, they got some great traits, guys, and I mean that fully. They have a lot of people that have the perfect traits that really do complement each other well. It's just about getting that mesh and kind of making every receiver kind of feel like that role that they have within the team and that role within the passing game. So even when they're not getting snaps, say if it's like someone like Javon Wims, who has plenty of talent, I believe, but just doesn't really have a chance because it's kind of a crowded room. When Wims' number gets called up, he knows exactly what he's supposed to go out there and do. Kind of just finding that role in your team and kind of, it's very cliche, but, the more like connectivity and chemistry that your team can have, just the better you are. So I think everyone kind of finding their role within the team, and that, role within something greater would be something that's going to really help make the Bears make a deep push if they, end up having a real successful year.
Hey guys, like our video, subscribe, and check out our bi-weekly podcast on Apple Podcasts. Thanks.